Welcome to the second edition of Girls' Voices in Ending AIDS. My name is Gloria Nalule. I work with UNFPA on HIV prevention, and I will be your host on this webinar. I am joined by two amazing ladies from the Education Plus Initiative, Hazel Jojo and Ngosa Kulala, who will be our moderators for this webinar. Now, for those of you who are joining in and you're from the French-speaking regions, we do have a French and English translation, and everybody that wants to engage with us, that has thoughts that want to be in a conversation, we are encouraging you to do that in our chat. Now, for everybody joining in, we are saying, welcome back. Welcome back to this conversation. We know that every year for now, 34 years, we join the world to commemorate the World AIDS Day, a day where we remember our friends, brothers and sisters, and loved ones that have died from HIV-related illnesses, but also our friends that are living with HIV. We stand in solidarity with them. And this year, AIDS 2022 is telling us that we are going to equalize, to end inequalities that perpetuate HIV, but also put a delay to our end to HIV. Now, we are going to have a conversation with a panel that will join us later. But before that, I would like to introduce to you our Deputy Executive Director Programs, Madame Katie Diane, that will be giving us opening remarks. Over to you, our DED. Oh, I'm just being told that we do not have our DED around, but we instead have our colleague Ib. Are you around to give any remarks on behalf of our DED, or this is something that we can come back to later? Yes, I will wait to hear from our ED when she is ready, our DED when she's ready. But now I will take this opportunity to introduce to you our moderators, Hazel and Ngosa, who are going to be moderating this session. So I will invite you ladies, if you can come on in, take over from me, and I will join the conversation later. Over to you, Hazel.
Okay, thank you so much, Gloria, and I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so happy because today is World AIDS Day, and this is our second edition doing this event. So welcome everyone. My name is Hazel Jojo, and I'll be co-moderating this session with my co-moderator Ngosa from Zambia. We are young women leaders from the Education Plus Initiative. In case you're wondering what is the Education Plus Initiative, don't worry, we got you covered because we have a video that is going to explain to you what is Education Plus Initiative. So stay tuned. Can we have the video, please?
Adolescent girls and young women in Africa continue to be disproportionately affected by the AIDS epidemic. About 4,200 adolescent girls and young women in Sub-Saharan Africa acquire HIV every week. Estimated 23,300 adolescent girls and young women died from AIDS-related illnesses in 2020, making it the second leading cause of death of adolescent girls and young women after maternal mortality in Sub-Saharan Africa. In 2020, 5 UN agencies came together in response with Education Plus Initiative, a high-level advocacy drive for the empowerment of adolescent girls and young women in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Sub-Saharan Africa is the epicenter of the AIDS crisis, and it falls first and hardest on adolescent girls. And the problem is unequal power. It is discrimination against girls.
Results of giving a girl her sexual and reproductive health education, if you will, making sure she's not pregnant before and therefore dropping out of school. Information about her body will return at least 10 times if not all the way up to 100 times more than the investment.
So far, 10 countries have committed to the initiative to ensure free and quality secondary education for all girls and boys by 2025 alongside key health rights and services. Together with governments, communities, young people's movements and community leaders, we can end HIV as a public health threat by 2030.
So the Education Plus initiative is basically a consortium of different organizations coming together to accelerate efforts and increasing the urgency towards fighting HIV amongst young women and girls in Sub-Saharan Africa. I will now hand over to Hazel, who will carry forward with the panelists who get to meet young, vibrant African leaders that will speak on the issue of HIV and AIDS. To you, Hazel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I hope that those who didn't know what the Education Plus initiative is, they now are aware of it. And also kindly note that we are putting the links on our chat box so that it can direct you to the information that you can require. So before we go to our panelists, I would like to just check with Gloria if our Deputy Director is now ready for the welcoming remarks, since she was facing some challenges. Gloria, if you can assist.
Well, thank you, Hazel. Unfortunately, we are still having some technicalities bringing the DEDP on board, but as soon as she is, I will alert you, and then we hear from her. So I think we can proceed with the conversation and maybe introduce to us our panel and introduce us, and we get to know the ladies and see who they are. Over to you, Hazel.
Right. Okay, thank you so much. So now we are going to go into our panel discussion, and I'm so excited because we have the young women on the panel, and I hope that you are ready to be marinated by the information that they're going to be sharing with us. So fasten your seatbelt because it's going to be so exciting. So on this panel, we are going to have Robina, who is an advocate of young people living with HIV. She is the focal person for ATHENA, which is a vibrant organization doing amazing work in the region. So Robina, good to have you on the panel. We also have Rowena, who is a highly motivated young woman. She's very passionate. She is the chairperson of the network of young people living with disabilities in Botswana. Good to see you, Rowena, and you're looking good, girl. Then we also have Grace Sakala. She is the SAfAIDS Regional SRH Youth Accountability, a member from Zambia. And good to have you on the panel, Grace. So I'll start with the first round of the question, and I'll start with you, Robina. What is the current situation regarding HIV financing in the region? Do the young women like you and me have access to the mainstream HIV funding that is available? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Hazel. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. I'm glad to be having this conversation today, being that it's the World AIDS Day, and we are trying to put the theme into practice, which is equalize. Over to the question. So the current situation shows that there is some financing. We really thank the different partners who are really doing a lot of, who are making an effort to see that different programs around for young women and adolescent girls are being financed. However, we realize that they are not coming in. You see that some of the programs are not really direct. They always come in as an extra, an extra fund or a surplus or something, just there, just a surplus in the budget. For example, when you look at the Global Fund, we don't have a specific, category of fund that is directed to the adolescent girls and young women. However, there is always that channel where it is directed maybe to the Her Voice Fund, or it goes under, something like treatment or prevention. And that is where we see that most of the funds coming to support the adolescent girls and young women programs. However, when you come down to the community level, you see that some AGYW are not receiving the services or the support that they are supposed to receive, because the funds, I would not say are being misused, but they are diverted. You see that there are some issues that are prioritized in the name of supporting the adolescent girls and young women programs. And you realize that what the funds would have done maybe to support the adolescent girls and young women is not entirely done, but it is done like halfway. So we really are glad and we appreciate that there is something that is being done. However, it is really indirect and we need to really just work on it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for mentioning that. Yeah, the funds might be there, but it might not really be there for the young women. And then I'll come to you, Rowena. Hearing what Robina was talking about, I cannot help but think about, the girls with disabilities, right? Do they have access to this financing? How is the access from girls with disabilities from your side? Over to you.
Okay. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Hazel, for bringing this up. Well, SRHR services and HIV services are still not accessible to young people with disabilities. I'll start with the health information. Information on SRHR and HIV is in inaccessible formats for young people with disabilities. You'll find that this information is not even in Braille, is not in large print font size, is not even in simplified formats for those with intellectual disabilities. So basically, young people with disabilities have limited information on sexual reproductive health and rights and HIV prevention. And then young people with disabilities still continue to face stigma, discrimination, and judgment when trying to access sexual reproductive health and rights services. We have cultural beliefs, societal attitudes, perceptions that young people with disabilities are asexual. They do not engage in sexual activities. So because of these beliefs, and they are stigmatized when trying to access services. And it is really heartbreaking because some of the stigma is even from healthcare workers. And there's also an issue of lack of privacy. Because these young people have to be accompanied by their caretakers to the health facilities, so their privacy is really compromised. Generally, people with disabilities are treated like minors, and because of this, they are denied an opportunity to independently make decisions for themselves regarding their sexual reproductive health and rights. And still on the issue of lack of privacy, there's an issue of communication barrier. I'll just quickly give an example using the deaf community. For young people who are deaf, because there's usually a need for a third party in the consultation room because our healthcare workers are not trained on sign language interpretation. So communication becomes a challenge here. So there's usually a need for them to bring their sign language interpretation. So to bring their sign language interpreter. So their privacy is really compromised here. And then there's also an issue of sexual violation. Young women and girls with disabilities continue to be sexually abused and violated by close family, friends, and their caretakers. And because these young people are dependent on these people, it is really hard for them to report. It is really hard for them to report or to stand up to these people and say no. And because they also have limited information on SRHR, on GBV, so sometimes they really don't know when they're being violated and what next steps to take if they're being violated, what measures to take in protecting themselves, because they just have limited information. And we know that where there is violence, where there is violence, safe sex, chances of having safe sex here are minimal. So we can imagine the risks that those young people are being exposed to, the risks of being HIV infected in this case, that are really, really, really high. And also for those who are blind, it's really hard to tell whether a person is using a condom or not. And the other thing is that the information that is written on these condoms is not in inaccessible format. It's not even in braille, so you don't even know whether you are using a condom which has expired or not. These are just some of the painful realities that young people with disabilities are currently facing. Thank you.
And thank you so much. It was beginning to getting emotional for me, because I was also then thinking about this is happening in Botswana, but also this is happening in Zambia, this is happening in Zimbabwe, my country. And I don't know when the cycle is going to end. And I think that after this call, we really need to replan, re-strategize, and recommit ourselves to the protection of the young women, including the young women with disabilities. Thank you so much for painting that painful reality, Rowena. So I'll come to you, Grace. We have been listening to what Rowena and Robina was saying, and in my mind, I was just like, oh my God, what can we do? How can we make sure that we end this? But anyways, to you, I'm going to ask, you are an Alliance and Accountability member from SAfAIDS, and maybe just, can you bring us to speed on what is the situation like for girls who hold their member states accountable in their different ways? I understand that most of our countries, especially in the region, are going towards elections. There's this political mood and everything else. And we have young women like you and me who wants to hold their government accountable regarding access to HIV financing and SRH. Maybe just paint a picture for what is the situation like for girls like that. Over to you, Grace.
Hello, thank you, Hazel. So it's really a challenge. I think when I first started, you find that the government does not really reach the treaties that they sign. And in the first place, when we started, the challenge that we had was that the government actually thought the alliance was working against them. We looked like we were rebellious, and most of the times we were labeled bad. But as times went by, we involved stakeholders. And social accountability monitoring is about rehearsing and presenting evidence-based material. So it's actually like when you find evidence, for example, the girls that are falling pregnant, the girls that are getting infected with HIV and AIDS, the percentages. As a region, you sit down, you have proof, and then you ask, you probe, you know, you don't really protest and everything. As a young leader who's in social accountability monitoring, it was really because in the first we were seen as rebels. But as time went by, the government understood we are only there for a good cause, and we're just there to make sure that they adhere and follow the treaties that they sign. For example, the Abuja Declaration for Health. There's a certain percentage that needs to go to the health sector, but unfortunately that allocation does not go to the health sector. This is where social accountability comes in, and then we want to know how it works, how come this money was not allocated. And then like Robina said, there's really a challenge when it comes to allocations for sexual reproductive health and rights, which makes it really difficult for girls to access services, not only the disabled ones, but young women in general. They don't have access to contraceptives because allocations are not there. There's no allocation for SRHR, or there's little or no allocation for SRHR. So it's really challenging, but right now I think I would say we're really getting somewhere because allocations have started being raised, except that we just also need to raise awareness that the social accountability monitoring, and you as a girl, you need to turn your right into your lived capability, because the hospital will not follow you. At the end of the day, you have to follow the hospital. Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys, for highlighting that most of our member states, they don't own up to some of the commitments that they have made. I live in a country where a 9-year-old got pregnant and actually gave birth in a country with the Children's Act, in a country which is a signatory to the Convention of the Children's Rights. So this is actually that is happening. And sometimes we then tend to go back to our member states, we go back to our political leaders, we go back to the people that we have voted for to say, can you make sure that this is not happening? Can you make sure that the resources are there? And sometimes the space might not be safe for us. Thank you so much for highlighting that there is still need for awareness. They still need to capacitate girls in social accountability and monitoring so that they are aware that they can hold their member states accountable, of course, in a more diplomatic and also democratic way. So thank you so much to my panel, Robina, Rowena, and Grace for giving us the information, for actually making sure that we are aware of what is happening in your different countries. So for now, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and continue this conversation. But we are not going to go anywhere because we have talented and amazing poets who are going to entertain us at the same time, giving us the information. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Tobile and Tana, who are 20-year-olds, are identical twins, joining us from South Africa. Hi, girls. Oh my God, you are looking so sparky. I'm so excited and we cannot wait to hear what you have in store for us. So stay tuned and fasten your seatbelts. Over to you, girls.
Let her voice write new poetic lines and proses of golden beauty, casting away HIV and AIDS. Let her voice fashion the old, build strong bridges of prevention, awareness, treatment, and care. Bridges that will take us far beyond the skyline of time. Bridges that will transform our core, equalize our existence away from the dance floors of abuse, violence, and stigma, so that we can be who we really are. There are young girls who use culture as their home and the world as their mirror. Young girls who refuse to fall from their childhood like leaves that weep from the tree. Their hungry throats wait for pure milk from breasts of earth. They are sisters who hit the streets like lightning to tell stories that even our hearts will never write. Their names grow like trees everywhere. They put on their shoes, embrace their crowns, walk to survive the journey. They are mothers who dive into the sea to silence fists of anger. They know the color of our screams, the sound of our tears. They plait our pain to hide the shame. Mothers whose hearts are shaped like the midnight star. They are grandmothers who stand like history on our lips to make us undress in the face of love. Grandmothers who urge us to beat our family drums louder, to mend the sins of our roots. They always remind us that our mouths are beautiful flowers that will never close. There are women and girls in this world who know fear, can claim our scars, infuse growth to inspire healing. And with their cracked fingertips, these women and girls, they weave the storm, the wind, and the rain. And with their fingertips, these women and girls, they weave the storm, the wind, and the rain into a soothing, loving song. So let her voice write new poetic lines and proses of golden beauty, casting away HIV and AIDS. Let her voice fashion the old, build strong bridges of prevention, awareness, treatment, and care. Bridges that will take us far beyond the skyline of time. Bridges that will transform our core, equalize our existence away from the dance floors of abuse, violence, and stigma, so that we can be who we really are. For every woman and girl is a reflection of my mother, my sister, my daughter, my warrior, my aunt, my teacher, my priest, my twin, my grandmother, my lover, my healer, my world, the very essence of this lifetime. We have the power to walk with equality before us. We have the power to walk with equality behind us. We have the power to walk with equality below us. We have the power of equality above us. We have the power to walk with equality beside us. We have the power to walk with equality all around us as we walk and stand firmly in our own voices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tobile and Tobeka. That was such a beautiful poetry piece. I got goosebumps, literal goosebumps when you guys were going through it. Thank you for shedding a light on the different women, you know, that walk Africa and the different ways in which they walk it. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. And it was such a reminder of how we can raise our voices through art as well. And just looking at you guys, you know, sharing such vital information in such a beautiful way is just a reminder that we can take advantage of the different abilities and talents that we have to raise our voices and to bring awareness to the issues that matter the most to us as young women in Africa. So thank you so much for that. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Ngosa Kulula, as I was earlier introduced by Hazel, and I will be co-moderating this session with Hazel. The conversation that we've had so far has been so informative, but it also reminds us of the realities that we are facing on a day-to-day basis. And I'm just glad that we get to have young women who are living these realities every single day be able to speak on these issues. So thank you so much. We're going to continue this conversation. So far, we've spoken about financing, we've talked about accountability, we've talked about being inclusive in fighting HIV and AIDS. So now, how can we challenge the status quo? We've talked about the status quo and what is currently prevailing. How can we challenge it? How can we hold, you know, duty bearers accountable? How can we also actively play our part? So I would take it back to the panelists to provide more information and shed more light on what we can do. So I will start with you, Robina. So the numbers on new infections are quite staggering. The statistics around new infections for young women and girls are just disheartening. What recommendations for support and empowerment can be made towards prevention, especially for young girls and young women in Sub-Saharan Africa? Robina?
Thank you so much, Ngosa. And I just want to applaud the two twins. I'm a twin myself, so kudos. Thank you so much for that inspiration. Back to the question. I feel that society still perceives adolescent girls and young women as a weak gender. And when it comes to issues of programming, they always portray this picture of the girls cannot choose, cannot say anything, cannot do this. However much we see that we are really coming up, adolescent girls and young women are uniting. We have networks, we have feminists, we have activists who are coming up to really like make their voices loud. But we still have the barriers in society, especially around stigma, where adolescent girls and young women are still seen as the root cause of the rising HIV infections. One, because they will always think that when you dress something skimpy, when you put on something that exposes your skin, you're trying to entice the men, you're trying to lure, boys to your side, and at the end of the day, you will infect them. So in my country, in Uganda, one thing we have is most of the guys or most of the gentlemen or most of the men will always think that the girls are the ones that spread the virus. And when it comes to HIV testing, we see that the testing around for men is very low. So we end up asking ourselves who is at fault right now or who is not doing better. But coming back to this, to the context of what we want to see happen is we are trying to empower the adolescent girls and young women. One, when it comes to the issues of negotiating for safer sex, issues around condom use are being sugar-coated. And I'm not saying this because it's what has been talked about, but I'm saying this based on experience. Right now, even where I am right now, we still have families that don't even talk about issues of sexual and reproductive health. And the issue of condom use is also still a very big challenge, because you see that parents don't even want to have conversations around sex or sexual education. And this has really created a very big barrier around information. Then, so if we could like try to really like make these conversations really vivid, and we make them, like we really discuss them without sugarcoating, without, you know, putting them here and there, I think we can really change something, especially when it comes to the female condom. We see that the female condom is available, but we have not seen different AGYW or adolescent girls and young women embracing it, because they have very little knowledge about it. I mean, when you talk to them and you're like, well, how would you really describe a female condom? They'll tell you, I would not use it, because they do not know about it. And then the challenge that we have is, even some of us, the advocates, we have a bias when it comes to the female condom. So whenever we are advocating for condom use, we're always like fronting the male condom instead of fronting the female condom, which is our condom. So I think we should also like try to prioritize also the female condom, because it is also essential. When it comes to HIV prevention, I think this is where we have to really make our voices even louder, especially around the injection, cabotegravir, Kabla, and then the dapivirine. We see that these two prevention methods have been successful, and the women have appreciated them, and we need to really like now roll them out. So we need to call upon governments, whether they are different governments, but also our very African governments, to really embrace these two prevention tools, because they are going to create a very big difference when it comes to issues of coming down on the new infections. And lastly, I want to really talk about the stigma and the stereotypes that are from society towards the adolescent girls and young women. I think we're really struggling and trying so hard to see that we are coming down on the stigma, but I think we need to have even more voices, especially around the people who are not living with HIV, to see that at least they also make their voices louder in coming down stigma and discrimination. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that, Robina. So what I hear you saying is we need to give girls back their power. When we talk about raising awareness on, you know, negotiating safe sex, when it comes to using a female condom, we have to raise that awareness amongst young girls and empower them. And we have to get to a point where we challenge societal beliefs and attitudes that blame young girls and women for the increase in infections based on indecent dressing and, you know, these different beliefs that do not count for anything when it comes to the fight for HIV and AIDS. So thank you so much for that reflection. I will jump to you, Rowena. When you shared about the status quo when it comes to disability and the fight against HIV, to be honest, even I did not think so far into how does a person that is blind know the expiry date on a condom that they're going to buy. And so these are the things that we have taken for granted, and we continue leaving people behind, but there's no way we can fight HIV if people are left behind. Rowena, what recommendations can be made towards a disability inclusive HIV response?
Okay, thank you so much for that. Well, HIV interventions are there. We see them, we acknowledge them, we appreciate them, but we need those interventions to be tailor-made to suit the specific needs of young people with disabilities, recognizing and acknowledging the diversities and intersectionalities that are within the disability populations. And we cannot have this conversation, the conversation on sexual reproductive health and rights and HIV, and leave out caretakers and healthcare workers out of the conversation. They are the key players here. So firstly, we need our healthcare workers to be trained on delivering available, as accessible, acceptable, and quality services to young people with disabilities. And we need the services to be provided using the human rights-based model, appreciating that disability is just a population diversity, which requires reasonable accommodations. And these reasonable accommodations should be treated as human rights and not privileges or favors. And also, we need our healthcare workers to be trained on sign language interpretation for easy communication with young people with disabilities, especially those who are deaf. And then we also need to have our health facilities, we need them to be universally designed, to be accessible and accommodating to young people with disabilities, because currently you'll find that our health facilities are not accessible, which on its own is very it's demotivating to try and go and access services, because it just sends a loud message that this facility was not built for you. So we need them to be universally designed to cater for those young people. And we also need our caretakers to be trained on sexual reproductive health and rights of young people with disabilities, because you'll find that in most cases, these caretakers, they don't know where to draw the line between violation and violating and protecting these young people. So they need to be trained. We need to have this conversation. This is a conversation that we need to normalize, and we need to have it with these people and with our community in general, because like I was saying earlier, we still have certain cultural beliefs, attitudes, and perceptions that we need, that make us realize that people are still lagging behind when it comes to information on disability. So we need to have those conversations and bring everybody on board. And lastly, we now have the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the CRPD, which is the first and only international treaty that speaks specifically to the sexual reproductive health and rights of people with disabilities. And the CRPD emphasized that people with disabilities can and should exercise their right to receive, to seek, and impact information at an equal basis with other people. So all that is being developed should be aligned with the Convention on Rights of Persons with Disabilities. That is, our policies and all programming should be aligned with the CRPD. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rowena, and thank you for shedding a light on the Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities. And thank you for also highlighting how we have to move from a needs basis to a human rights basis, because each and everyone has the right to access information, treatment towards ending HIV and AIDS. Thank you for those reflections. But even more so, like you said, focusing on the healthcare personnel that are placed in these different healthcare facilities, making sure that they're able to competently support and assist all people with disabilities, even taking into consideration the intersections that lie in the group of people with disabilities. Thank you so much. So Grace, on the SRH social accountability and monitoring front, following the key takeaways from Rubina and Rowena, and now we've heard more about conventions that have come up in terms of promoting human rights for different people. How can we then actively participate in holding duty bearers accountable to their commitments? It's not enough for us to just make commitments, but how do we make sure that even we as young women are able to go back to the people that sign off these on these conventions and these policies and ensure that they're following up on them? Grace?
Thank you, Ngosa. So first things first, if you want to hold your duty bearers accountable, you must know your rights. Second, you need to know what treaty is signed to. And then third, young person, you need to attain your rights into your lived capability. Because like I said, most of the times where these hospitals have the services that a young person needs, for example, PAPE, post-exposure
So it seems Grace is experiencing network challenges. I don't know if it's just on my end or if everybody else can hear her. So are you able to hear Grace?
No, but I think she's coming back.
Are you able to hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you now, Grace. Thank you. Please proceed.
There are times where hospitals have these services that young people need, for example, the PrEP and PrEP, post-exposure prophylaxis, but then you find that the young people do not go there to access these services because maybe they're scared to go. So the third other thing is for you to turn your rights into a lived capability. You need to be able to move yourself from where you are, go to the clinics and demand that you're given that service, because in most of the times, like in most study countries, have made actually PrEP and PrEP legal now. You can actually walk into any government hospital and tell them you've been exposed and you want to access PrEP. So turn your rights into your lived capability, know your rights. The other thing is that you need to know your area ward member, you need to know your members of parliament, because these are stakeholders. These are people that work for us, they are our duty bearers. These are people that you can easily go to and complain to them, tell them what you're facing. These are people that we should not be scared of. These are people that we should ask what went wrong, why is there no medicines, why is there not maybe a focal point person to attend to us? All in all, young people should be assertive and choose what they want to do at the end of the day and access these services. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace, for that feedback. I hear you saying there are these services that are available. We might not be where we want to be, but we do have access to certain services, and there is a need for young women and girls to also be responsible enough to access what's available to them. Be responsible enough to look out for information that is relevant to ending HIV and AIDS. But also I want to challenge each one of us to also make a commitment towards ensuring that we'll spread the word and raise awareness and play our part in ending the fight against HIV and towards a healthier future for young women and girls. So I would just once more go back to all the panelists and ask you to just give a short call for action. What is it that we want to put out there? If we do not remember anything else that you've said, what is it that you want to be left out there as our call for action, as our equalized call? So I will start with you, Rowena. What is your equalized call?
First of all, disability should be treated as a population diversity, and the inequality is usually not because of the impairment, but because of the inability but it's because of society not being able to break all barriers that continue to hinder people with disabilities from accessing services or from participating in society in general. So if we could just treat disability as a population diversity, that will solve most of our problems, and recognizing the diversities and intersectionalities that come out within this population. Thank you.
So powerful. Thank you for that, Rowena. And to you, Robina, what would be the call for action on HIV financing for young women and girls?
Thank you so much, Ngosa. I would just say one thing, that believe in us. That is a call to action. Believe in us and trust us with the funds, trust us with the money, trust us with the finances, and you will not regret. I mean, when we look at the business world, you see that the women are on top. So when it comes to HIV financing, please trust the women. You will not regret. Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you so much for that. Nothing for us without us. And so the need to believe in us in terms of financing and in terms of coming up with meaningful interventions that will work for us. Thank you so much for that. And I will come to you, Grace, when it comes to social accountability and monitoring. What is your call for action?
Okay, so my call to action is, I feel that I'm calling upon the government to just stick to the treaties that they've signed for us. And like Lovina said, like I said in the first place, sorry, let's all be assertive. Let's go to health facilities to access these services. By that way, we're going to know what is there and what is not there. And you have a right to work in any government facility because you are the one that employed those people. Duty bearers are not people to be scared of. they work for us. They're our duty bearers. And at the end of the day, when you don't turn your right into your lived capability, and then you won't get what you deserve at the end of the day. So if you're a young person out there and you need something, walk into that clinic, access your services, don't be shy. It's your health at the end of the day, and it's your right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were excellent takes from our panelists. Thank you, Rowena, Grace, and Robina, and our audience participants in the conversation. I've seen the conversation and the chats going off, and thank you so much for engaging in this conversation. I would now just ask Hazel if she has any summary of everything that has been said in the first round conversation, and then she will call upon Gloria to close the webinar. Thank you so much for that engaging conversation. I have enjoyed myself. Hazel?
Thank you so much, Ngosa, and thank you so much, ladies. You don't know how, I was getting so excited. I was like, yes, this is it. And thank you so much for the call to action. I'm seeing in the chat, Ngosa, that people are engaging. We have so many contributions. We have got, girls coming through with some interventions. Thank you so much. I see Maxine, I see Munira, I see Tobeka. It's so exciting and it's so motivating when you see young women coming through with the solutions for the problems that they are facing. And I'm so excited because I'm in a space where we are able to appreciate, we are able to trust each other, and it's a safe space. So thank you so much to all the panelists. I was writing notes. I got, so much information about what can we do to make sure that we create a safe space, we create a good space for us and also for girls with disabilities. And the call to action, that was so powerful, Robina, believe in us, trust us with the funds, trust us with the leadership, trust us with the ideas. As you can see by, the success of this event, that when you trust young women like ourselves, you won't be disappointed. So I just want to thank everyone who has joined, everyone who is on the call. Please tweet, retweet, let us tag each other. Let us make sure that we hold our government to account regarding some of the commitments that they've made regarding access to SRHR. So I'll hand it back to Gloria. Over to you, Gloria.
Thank you, Hazel. Thank you, Ngosa. And what an amazing panel discussion we've had. Wow. I mean, just like you, Hazel, just like you, Ngosa, I've been taking notes. There's so much that has been discussed. And who am I to repeat what has been said already? I will leave it to that. But I would like to thank our audience in the chat that are engaging with us. We see you, we hear you, we appreciate you for making time to join this conversation. Now, in this point, we are almost coming to the close of our webinar. And unfortunately, our DEDP will not be giving her remarks as initially mentioned due to some technical reasons. But then our Global AIDS Coordinator, Elizabeth Benoma, will be here to give closing remarks. And I don't know if Elizabeth, you're there. I will invite you in now to give your remarks. Over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And what a great way to champion the World AIDS Day slogan, equalizes. The voices we have heard today have given a loud call to action to all of us to end inequalities and safeguard the health and well-being of adolescent girls and young women in all their diversity. And we've heard you, that diversity, the disability as a population diversity, the message of trust the women, stick to the treaties that we have signed, make them actionable, be assertive. I really like that, turn your rights into a lived capability. I think I will take that with me. I mean, we live in a world that has now reached a population of 8 billion. It's a milestone for humanity. It's a moment for reflection and an opportunity to come together as a global community to commit to a world in which all of the 8 billion of us can thrive equally, including equal access to HIV prevention, treatment, and care services, and specifically for those populations that are left behind or marginalized, as we've heard today. And UNFPA is really, really pleased to help amplify the girls and young women's voices today and every day. I mean, with an adolescent girl or young woman being infected with HIV every 2 minutes, we really need to reinvest and recommit ourselves to protecting and safeguarding their rights and embracing their leadership in the response. And that means access to education and sexual and reproductive health information and services, being free from harmful practices and violence, and getting the empowerment of their bodily autonomy and the opportunity and livelihood to really reach their full potential. We see that in the UNFPA strategy, My Body, My Life, My World, where we try and bring all of these aspects together, the young women as a whole. Reaching young women and partnering with young women, such as these champions, and indeed experts we have heard from today, is central. We hear the call to change attitudes and perceptions, access for all to the information, including through comprehensive sexuality education, and respectful, and as was emphasized today, confidential sexual and reproductive health services. And the commitments, as we've said, must become actions. The declarations, the treaties, they're not enough. We have to make them actions. So I hope that each of us will lead today and do our part to make this happen. Do share these messages with your leaders in the community, in your nation, and indeed across the world. Let us all come together to rally around the cry to equalize, that champions a world in which all people, including those at the highest risk, can protect themselves and stay free of HIV and sexually transmitted infections, or live with HIV with dignity and passion and success. Every person should know the freedom and safety and the right to bodily autonomy. We should be able to exercise these rights, irrespective of our gender identity or sexual orientation, our sexuality, our disability, our sex. We all have these rights. So let me leave you with that, and thank you to all of the young women we have heard from today, for Gloria and Hazel and Ngozi for organizing this really fantastic session, and to all of you who have joined us today. I thank you, and let's keep up the fight.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much for those amazing remarks. And for everybody that took time to join us, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. I cannot forget to say that we do also recognize that the condom is, a dual protection from HIV, STIs, and unintended pregnancies. And it's another call to action for everybody to condomize. Please follow us. There's a chat link on our social media, on our Twitter and Facebook pages on the Condomize campaign, where we post edutainment, educative content about young people and how you can prevent yourself from HIV. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that were not able to join the webinar, we are going to post it on our YouTube channel. Links are also going to be shared in the chat. And also, if you follow our HIV webpage at UNFPA, you should be able to find this conversation. Until next time, thank you everybody for making time to come and join us. And we will see you again next year in hopefully another edition of Girls' Voices. But hopefully we will also bring in the boys' voices with the girls' voices in ending AIDS. So thank you, our panel. Thank you for our moderators. Let us just give a wave to everybody out there watching us, and we'll talk another time. Goodbye and have a good day and good evening wherever you are.